Welcome everyone to the International Black Summit interview podcast. The International Black Summit, for those of you who aren't familiar with us, is an organization created in 1991, and our purpose is to provide an opportunity for participants to bring into being their vision for the Black community and the world. My name is Grace Lawrence, and I'm one of the co-hosts this evening, and with me is my co-host. You want to say a few words?
Glenn Greenidge from New York City.
And I'm from Toronto, Canada. And tonight we're going to be interviewing a longtime facilitator of the International Black Summit. He's been a foundational member of the organization for many years. His name is Jonn Thomas, a multi-skilled person, very interesting, and I think you guys are going to really enjoy our conversation with him tonight. So let me say a little bit about Jonn. I'm just going to read his biography here, short version. So a little bit about Jonn Thomas. So Jonn has served as an International Black Summit facilitator, trainer, curriculum developer, and co-leader of the International Black Summit Facilitator Body. For over 30 years, he has personally coached or trained more than 1,000 people in areas of personal power, career, relationships, goal setting, business, project management, and leadership. Jonn is the president of MicroBiz Marketing, a company that specializes in creating customized and affordable marketing solutions for small businesses. His technical marketing expertise is an outgrowth of his commitment to delivering huge outcomes to business owners and others who want to live expansive lives. Jonn's coaching and facilitator training includes his 1993 to 2000 participation in Landmark Education, where he completed training that prepared him to lead introductions to the Landmark Forum and to lead the Self-Expression and Leadership Program. According to Jonn, quote, "We all have our own unique gifts and talents. I believe the greatest gift we can give is the gift of really being fully ourselves. You have God-given talents. I invite you to be exactly who you are. Develop your vision and gifts, then share them with your family, friends, community, and even the world." Imagine that. An avid connoisseur of P-Funk, soul, and blues music, Jonn mostly enjoys practicing new music on his bass guitars and showing off his Carolinian barbecue grill skills. So that's a little bit about Jonn Thomas. So we're going to ask Jonn to join us in the virtual studio today, which just means having him come on screen with us so that you can all see him. So, Glenn,
Jonn, go ahead and start your video.
So, and I will say, I haven't had Jonn's Carolinian grill and barbecue skills. So it's about time you could get a little bit of that. So let's spotlight you and have you join us. Great. Welcome, Jonn. Can you come off mute?
You can unmute yourself.
Yep.
Okay.
Welcome, Jonn. Welcome. How you doing?
I'm doing really good. I'm doing really well.
Great.
Good to have you, Jonn.
Thanks. It's good to be here. Thank you guys for inviting me. Since you started or you ended with the Carolinian barbecue, I almost did some today. I was thinking about, so just we start this podcast off right? I was thinking about slow cooking 2 whole chickens spread out. So I bought the chickens. I just haven't cooked them yet. So maybe by the next time we get together, I can tell you what happened as I smoked 2 full chickens back here in the yard in North Kakalaki.
Okay, well, let me ask you this, Jonn. How does that help me here in Toronto? You're going to ship it here?
I've been waiting
package it up and ship it to Canada?
Yeah, ship it to Canada. I'm waiting for somebody to invent that machine that I can put it in, like my microwave, and hit a button, and then it shows up where you are. So as soon as that happens, you're good to go, Grace.
It might be closer than we think, because Lord knows some of the things that are happening with AI and other things are things I never thought I would see in my lifetime. So you never know what's possible. You never know what's possible.
You never know.
So,
Jonn, what was your first summit event, and what got you interested in the summit?
yeah.
Okay, so let's start with my first summit was in New Orleans, 1994. And how I found out about it was through this couple that we met in the Introduction Leaders Program with Landmark. I was a coach, they were participants in the program, and my then fiance was also in the program. Their names was Thomas and Brenda Shelton.
Oh, okay.
One of our longtime facilitators' brother, Susan Shelton. And I remember meeting Thomas in the advanced course, and they said, they are having this conversation with Black people.
Mm-hmm.
Where? In New Orleans. When? In August. He was like, you want to go? I was like, yeah, I want to go. So
this conversation being a conversation about transformation.
This kind of conversation, because we were in an advanced course. We was in a transformational kind of space already, and so it was like a secret. They're having this conversation with Black people, and a group of Black people are getting together and doing this. Where? In August. Where? In New Orleans. You going? Yeah, I'm going. You going? Yeah, I'm going. And that got us on this adventure of finding out about the International Black Summit. I personally had been looking for something like this for a long time. Some people having this kind of transformational, metaphysical, different way of looking at life kind of conversation. So I did the Landmark Forum in 1993. So I was happy. I found something, right? But it was a bunch of people, it was like maybe 3 people that looked like me in it. And so by 1994, and I met Thomas and those, and found out there were Black people having the conversation, I was like, I gotta be there. And when I got here being to New Orleans, but I'm like, when I got to the summit, I saw all these beautiful Black people. I'd never seen that many Black people, right? Except for college, right? But I've never seen that many different kinds of Black people. I went to a historically Black university, Winston State, and most of the Black people there look like me, act like me, was from the same places that I was from, somewhere in America. I get to New Orleans and I'm seeing them. They all look like me, but they didn't all act like me, and they didn't all talk like me. And there was this one lady in the lobby, and I'm not sure who she was talking to. She said, stop creating him not coming. Stop creating him not coming. Create him coming. Create him coming. And me and Lisa looked at each other like, what does that mean, create him coming? Who are these people? Right? And that was like the very beginning of my journey of discovering, really the diversity that exists in our culture, in our race. So I got to see Africans and Jamaicans and other people from the Caribbean and people from Canada and people from other parts of the world where I didn't know, y'all. I'm telling you, I didn't know. I never met them. I seen them on TV, but I never met them. So that was my first. And then that night, they had the second line. Thursday night, they had this big gathering welcoming everybody to the city, to the place. And You know, there's this band playing, boom, 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 dun, 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 and people walking around the, dun, dun, dun. I mean, they're walking around dancing. And again, I'm thinking, what kind of Black people are these? Because I've just come from, like, you know, a really kind of rigid, be in your seat at 9 o'clock, right, ready to go kind of training. And that was my entree. And for probably the first day or so, I was skeptical. You know, I was looking, I was liking, but I was skeptical because must have been all the cool Black people was there, right? Because they wasn't in my neighborhood here in Fayetteville, right? So I'm gonna stop there with the answer to that question because I know you might have another one or two, and as you guys can tell, I can talk.
Got it. Well, you know, it's interesting. 1995 was before my exposure to the International Black Summit. My first exposure was in 1999. But it's interesting you talking about seeing other types of Black people on TV, because I saw African Americans on TV. And so my experience to actually being inside African American culture was through the International Black Summit. So
Wow.
we all have our little piece of the world, you know, and come
Yeah.
in and come together in the summit. So just a little bit then about when you joined the facilitator body. Like we've already talked about the fact that you have been a long time member of the facilitator body, and I have also been one of the people to hold the space, what we call holding the space for the leadership body. What had you decide to join the facilitator body and be trained to become an International Black Summit facilitator?
Well, basically, the same reason why I wanted to attend the International Black Summit, I wanted to be in a transformational conversation with people of Black African descent. And when I did the summit in August of 1994, I wanted to be a facilitator then. But at the time, I was leading other programs for landmark education. And every year, there was a special meeting that if you were interested in being a facilitator, you had to be able to attend that meeting. And every year, there would be something on that date, right? Some training, some mandatory training I had to attend. And I was looking at the people facilitating the annual event and how they were able to engage with people, how they were able to talk with people. I thought it was nothing short of miraculous. Some of the things that they would say, some of the ways of being that they were being, was the 5 original facilitators, and they would be interacting with people. And I was like, I want to do that. And I couldn't do that until I got to the closer to the end of my work with Landmark. And so a weekend came open where I could go to an October weekend. I want to say 98, maybe, like right before you probably took the summit. It came open and I could attend. So for about 4 years, 5 years, I was all around it. But I couldn't actually become a facilitator because I couldn't attend that weekend. And I wanted to be able to have that kind of facility with people and to be able to be with people, whether they were happy or sad or confronted with something or dealing with some kind of major conflict or dealing with some kind of major acknowledgement. They were able to be with people, be related to people in such a way that was really inviting to me. And I wanted to be trained and developed and being able to do that, being able to be like that with people.
So John, would you say that there was a different way of being with the people, that's what had attracted you? You kind of talked a little bit about it, but you were in leadership and training and leading people in this other transformational organization, but yet you saw something different about the International Black Summit and how they were with their participants. So say a little bit more about that if you could.
So I came from a training environment, right? And up until then, I was also a consultant because I'm coming from a teaching environment. I'm coming from here's the outline, right? Here the key points you need to learn. Here's the objective, and here's the training, and I would deliver the training, right? Where this was like more like a conversation. There was no manual. As an SLP leader, I had a manual that was that thick. It was scripted. The whole thing was scripted. I could lay the whole thing out. That's how organized it was, right? And we were leading, as they would call it, training. Whereas in the International Black Summit, we facilitate by listening, right? Listening to what people are sharing and mining the gold in what they're saying and doing it in such a way that they begin to hear different aspects of themselves in their own speaking. So part of my training as a facilitator was kind of undoing the training as a professional trainer, if you will, right? It wasn't teaching. It wasn't, I got the answer, now I'm going to give it to you, right? And I said, there's nothing wrong with that because there are times when that is the perfect thing. I don't want to listen to you talk for 3 days about the thing you could have, should have, would have said to somebody, but you didn't, right? Right now, I need you to pick up this rock and move it from here. I'm being facetious, y'all, and put it over here. That's all I need you to do. So there's a place for instructional type of education. But this was a more of a organic and flowing kind of engagement. I remember being in New York, and I don't know exactly what the conversation was, but in 1995, the summit was in New York. It's the biggest summit ever, right? And I remember Anthony saying something about they were setting up the lunch break. And I don't know if this is exactly like this, but the homework was something like, okay, so now for lunch, I want you to go be with that which you can't be with. I'm thinking, what kind of, you know what I mean? But I did my homework, right? I went and I was looking at the thing that I was kind of thought I was afraid of being with which at the time was being like vulnerable. Right. So over the break, over the lunch, I had to go and be with being vulnerable. And so I made that mean I need to open myself up. I need to share. I need to say some things I normally wouldn't say. And then come back and share it. And then they would listen to what people say and they would pull something from there that the whole room is like, wow. So does that communicate? Because it's really kind of a experiential phenomenon when you're engaged, and as one of the people who facilitate, it's an experiential kind of phenomenon. Like I might sound like I know what I'm talking about and I know where I'm going, and what I know for sure is to listen to the space and trust what I'm hearing is what's being said, and then checking in to see if that's actually so, right? And in the process of that, people see things for themselves as we're going through this process. I'm pausing
So
because Grace, I saw you say
Just
something or see
right,
something. Or,
yeah. I have a two-part question for you, Jonn. But I'm going off script because we did send you some possible questions, and when I send them to our guests, I usually mention, and I don't think I mentioned this to you, that we have these interview questions, and we may use them and we may not. Right? So
no, I
what
didn't
we
get that
sent you as
memo.
questions, we may or may not follow that script. So this is an off script two-part question.
Okay, great.
Part one of the question is, back in the 90s, and you saw these facilitators at the front of the room, the original five, and what they were doing seemed magical to you. You later became a facilitator and have been a facilitator now for 20 plus years. Are you now clear that you are them? Right? Are you now clear that you are them? You are the one of the people up at the front of the room creating magic. That's part one of the question.
Well, I'm one of the people up in the front of the room, right? I'm clear about that, right? The creating the magic part, well, I don't know, but yeah, I would say yes. I've been
Or facilitating magic showing up. Maybe you're not creating it, but you're facilitating magic showing up.
I'll buy that. I'll buy that. I'm holding, like we like to say, I'm holding a space for that to happen for people,
Jonn.
whatever that might be.
Before you answer the second part of that question, so describe holding the space for people, because that sounds like something that people may not necessarily be familiar with, but it certainly is a space that has to be captured in order to listen. So, as a facilitator, what would you say to someone who asks you what is holding the space?
Let me see. I was looking around my office to see if I had something that I could use that I thought was appropriate for a demonstration. But imagine that there's an area. And when I say holding the space, I'm thinking physically and metaphorically, right? There's an area, a contained area in which we're having a dialogue, having a conversation, right? As a facilitator, I would say my job, our job, is to listen to what's happening in that area. In our case, it'll be the annual summit event, right? Last week it was a summit share, right? So I'm listening to everything that's happening in the space, right? And being accountable for what's happening in the space. And there's all kinds of things that's going on in the listening, if you will, in that space. There are people perplexed, there are people excited, there are people sad, there are people who are just got off of work, there are people that's ready to go to sleep. There are all kinds of things that's there. And as a facilitator, our job is to kind of be aware of it, right? And keep engaging in that. So what I mean by that is, instead of me putting all my stuff in it, right, bringing all my conversation in it, coming up with all the things I want to tell people, right? That's not my job as the facilitator. My job as the facilitator is like, if this was a room, if this was the space, right? Then this would be the people in the space. And our job is to listen to the conversation that's happening in a way that these people hear and see themselves, right? And see things that open up for them. So it's not my job to then bring all of my stuff and put in the space, because I'm holding the space. It'd be kind of hard to hold the space and put your stuff in the space. And that's like the best I can do with that, Glenn, because it's
No,
kind of
perfect,
okay.
perfect. Now back to your question, your second question, Grace.
Yeah,
So,
what was the second part?
Part two.
Off script.
So first, thank you for your answer to part one. So part two, again, looking back to before 1995
4.
and to today, what would you say the impact of your participation in the International Black Summit has been on your life? So what is showing up in your life, in your world, in your community, in your family that you declare is a result of your participation in the International Black Summit since 1995?
4.
Did you hear my question okay?
I did.
Okay.
Did you hear me say 4?
Yes.
4.
You keep saying
1994.
1995.
Yeah.
Oh, 1994. Sorry. Okay, got it. Sorry,
Okay.
I didn't know what 4 was. I was like, golf? I don't know. Okay, 1994. Got it.
Okay, so I pretty much I was talking to Susan yesterday, Susan Shelton, one of the facilitators, and we facilitate a lot together. And I was talking to her about, well, I use it everywhere, right? I use it all the time, and I use it everywhere. What is the it? I use the tools, the distinctions of the International Black Summit, like authentic listening, like
The
noticing.
impact of using the tools everywhere. So I
I'm
want to
going to
know
tell
the
you.
results. Okay.
Yeah, the results has been everything from starting an economic development um, addition to the Chamber of Commerce that eventually turned into an economic development corporation that supported about 55,000 people, a community of about 55,000 people. So
This is the
everything from
Fayetteville Chamber of Commerce?
it was the Spring Lake Chamber of Commerce,
Okay.
one of the cities of the suburbs of Fayetteville. So everything from something like that, and not knowing anything about economic development, but I knew about vision and I knew about facilitation. And so I could take those skills, have a conversation with the community, kind of mind what the community wants to have happen. We ended up putting together a committee of people that were elected officials and property owners and the hotel owners and the residential development and the some of the faith-based people to become this group of people to support the development of this community. I got that access to that way of being by being a facilitator and using the different tools that we have, the different distinctions.
So John, let's hear about some of the distinctions that that you maybe use more frequently than some of the others, because the International Black Summit has a slew of probably about 30, maybe close to 40 distinctions. So what are the distinctions that you use in your day-to-day living?
Um, Lord, Glenn, I'm gonna start with noticing, right? I'm gonna start with noticing because I've actually used that distinction to create a space for myself to move about in the world, if you will, right? And the space for myself is I'm listening for whether or not I'm having a inspiring experience. So I'm using the distinction noticing. Noticing is like not adding anything to, it's like observing yourself in action, kind of like step away from yourself and look at yourself in action. and then see what you see, right? No emotion, no judgment, just kind of just check it out. So now when I'm having conversations with people, I'm always kind of participating in something. I'm bouncing it against, is this an inspiring experience? And if it is, I let it ride. I keep going. I keep going with it. If it's not, then I look to see, is there anything that I can shift or change about myself so that I can have an inspiring experience? And if I see something, I'll try to shift it because I'm committed to having the inspiring experience. They're not. But if I don't see anything that I can shift about myself, I don't see, I'm noticing, I'm checking it out. I'm looking at how I'm feeling, my mannerisms, my emotions. You know, am I getting agitated? Like all of that's going on. I'm like, you know what? I'm not having an inspiring experience here. And I began sharing that with people at the beginning of the year. So now they know it's not personal, bro. Just letting you know this conversation we're having right now is not an inspiring experience for me. So I'm going to have to go ahead and say goodnight, right? I think we had a great conversation. And I noticed how much freer it's been. So I use our distinction to create this context for me living my life, and I can check it. I can check it at any time, right? And it puts the onus of having the kind of experience I want to have back on me. You know, now that's a big ask because, you know, I'm not saying everybody gets off the hook because they don't. Because I'm really committed to having an inspiring experience, and that might involve me engaging with you, right? It might involve me having a conversation with you so we can see what's there and see if I can enfold you into having an inspiring experience yourself. I'm gonna stop there because, you know, I shared with you for about 2 hours about that, just that one thing.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, what's your vision, Jonn? You know, like we talk about the International Black Summit purpose being to provide an opportunity for participants to bring into being their vision for the Black community in the world. What is your vision?
You know, when you were reading that my intro, Grace, and I don't know how many years ago that was written. It's over 20 years. The a God-given talent, right? Accessing our God-given talent and sharing it with the world. My vision is pretty much still that. I just say it a little differently now. Nowadays, I say that we discover our authentic selves and share it with the world. So my vision for the Black community in the world is that we discover who we authentically are, whatever that is for you, and share that with the world. And what I've come to understand is that I might not I might not personally like the authentic expression of who you are. I might not, but that's not important here. What's important is the fulfillment of the vision that you get access to who you are and you share that with the world. And so it's been an interesting journey because I find I'm like on both sides of the fence. Like, I love it that you see this about yourself and you're expressing yourself, and yeah, go for it, right? Yeah, rah, rah, like they say, rah, rah. And then sometimes I'm like, oh, this is a little bit too much for me, you know, the authentic expression of who you are. Um, but it allows me to also be who I am, like I just discovered. 2 weeks ago, I just discovered I was an artist,
Okay, what kind of artist?
a musical artist.
I
I
saw
play
that. I
bass.
saw a bass guitar behind you there.
Yeah, I play bass. That's Slim. You can't see her, but that's Slim back there. I play bass, and I've been doing pretty good learning how to play bass, but I've gotten this this equipment to record me playing bass, and learning the equipment, I've learned about making beats and making music. And so I've made a couple of songs. And I'm sitting here like putting this music together and thinking to myself, who knew there was a whole artist in me? And I don't consider myself that. I'm like, I like the rigid training. I like the structural thing. So this has like been a new kind of phenomenon for me, because I'm still discovering aspects of myself, right? And so I've been sharing it. I hadn't shared it with you guys yet, but I will. I recorded this song, and then I laid down the drums, and I laid down some chords on my little keyboard, and I laid down a little melody, and then I grabbed Slim and I played the bass line to it. And after it was over, I was like looking at myself, noticing, right? Looking at myself like, what? You did that? Calm down, John. Calm down.
So John,
It's only 8 o'clock. Calm down.
so John, would you say that the tools of the International Black Summit, the distinctions that you've had in your life, have provided some access to freedom and self-expression?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I mean, can't you tell? I'm just sharing noticing with you, right? My One of my favorite distinctions is vision and trigger. The distinction trigger got a good friend, they're pretty much kissing cousins, called No Out There. And those two distinctions have given me access to being able to navigate, if you will, when I'm in an upset or a breakdown. Like when I am upset that someone did something to me or said something to me, that there's a process that I can take myself through using the distinction trigger to get access to what it's pointing to that I may not be able or I'm unwilling to be with. And in the space of being with that thing, I'm able to take responsibility for who I'm being in it. And that gives me some room to now cause something else to happen. And it could be as simple as you say something that pissed me off in the moment, or something a little more home hitting, like when I first moved here back to Spring Lake. I was staying, renting this house. I moved back here to help my mom in the real estate business. I became her director of marketing, and I'm living in this house. Long short of, we've been living in this house for about 5 years, and I'm at a cookout, like a neighborhood cookout. At that time we were in the country, right? The country, like really the country. And I remember we're at a cookout, y'all. And we're having a good time at the cookout. And my landlord, older couple, she's also at the cookout. He's also at the cookout. I go back for like my second plate. So the food was like ribs and barbecue chicken and potato salad and macaroni and cheese and, tea and, Carolinian barbecue. Isn't that what you call it? So I go back for my next plate, and I say to the landlord, I said, there's a problem with the middle bathroom. Do you want us to take care of it, or would you like to take care of it? That's all I said. And she said, that's it. That's it. I'm tired of this. I'm just tired of this. I'm giving you your notice. Expect to see it in writing in the next few days. I'm sitting there with my plate. Like, what just happened? Right? And so she started saying, and you did this, and this what you did to the floors, and you could have done this, and I, now that she's triggered, I'm triggered, and when I get triggered, I get loud or righteous. So I'm like, well, isn't it that's what the rent for, to pay for stuff that breaks down? You got that? Nah, I don't want to hear all that. I'm just gonna send you. You got 30 days. Now I'm triggered. I'm pissed off at this woman. I've been paying my rent every year. I mean, every month on time. I hadn't always done that. I was feeling pretty good about myself. I had done everything the right way. And somebody still had this kind of power over me. Right? I thought I had done it. And I talked about her bad. Anybody who would listen. And Nancy Simmons and a couple other people said, at some point, Jonn, you're going to see this came to bless you, right? You're going to see what the gift of the trigger is. And doing our work, I just kept looking, like, what is it? And one of the things that I got to was, I can't believe I'm back in this place of feeling helpless again. It wasn't just the feeling helpless, but to be feeling helpless again. Like I did everything I was supposed to do, and I'm back in this place of feeling helpless again. And I really didn't want to be with that. You know, you can hear me talk about it today. I did everything right. But I started to see that, and then I could begin to see other places where something like that was imminent, like little landmines. I could begin to look around my life and see other places that if I didn't address it, I would have this experience of feeling helpless again. And so seeing that, I was now able to look at and be responsible for my life and what was happening in my life. And I thanked her eventually. Now I'm telling y'all this like it happened over a couple of days, but this was like over a month or so. And I ended up moving out and moved into another house, a better house, beautiful house, you know, out in Fayetteville, out of the country, right? Not out of the country, but I'm now in the city. I'm back in the city. And I started looking at other areas where I had these triggers waiting to happen about some relationships that I had with people. So I was able to take that tool, and I use that tool on a regular basis to see what it's pointing to. Because I know on the other side of it is going to give me access to a way of being. Now, do I still feel helpless sometimes? Yes. But I'm not stopped by it. And I'm not stuck with it. You follow what I'm saying? Like I once I recognize that I'm feeling that way and can own what I did to cause that to happen, then I'm freed up. And it's a big ask. It's a big ask to ask someone to do that. And if you're willing to do that, then you'll see some things like I did about yourself that will free you up.
I love that share, Jonn. You know, I love it. It's really reminding me of an experience that I had during the pandemic shutdowns or shortly after, you know, in 2020, early 2021, the midst of the pandemic. And we had some work that was, I live in a townhouse complex in my unit, and we were having some work done and the windows were being replaced and they were having workers come in and do all of this stuff. And I didn't want it. I was like, this is my safe haven right now during the pandemic. I don't want strangers walking through my house, breathing over all of that stuff. I was like, I didn't want it right now, like not right now. And so I spoke with the manager, and I was like, and I'm accustomed to getting what I want. Like I live a life where I get what I want. So I totally thought that I was going to talk to her and say, can you adjust my schedule and move me to the end of the list? And if it means, charging me a little bit of money, charge me the little bit of money, whatever, and do it. And she was like, absolutely not. This will not happen. It'll change the schedule for everybody. Not happening. They are coming this day, and that's that. And I'm not going to. And the experience of powerlessness that I had, like, what? Did somebody just tell me a no? What? And I went back, like I was typing emails to her, here's, and blah, blah, blah. And this can't, it has to be, everything is possible. And you just need to make the adjustments. And I'm willing to cover the cost of the adjustments. Just do it. and eventually, I also just sat in my powerlessness. I just sat in it. I was like, I am triggered because this is an experience of powerlessness for me.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And that's what's having me go through all of this. And you know what? I can just have them come and do the windows, right? Like I could just let it go. I could just surrender, and I could just let them do the windows. And all of this anger and all of this frustration I can release. So I appreciate that share. It reminded me of that. And yes, I sometimes still experience powerlessness. Not very often. It's not common, but when it happens, it doesn't keep me stuck.
Right. You just send one email. You don't send like 18. Right. Thank you, Grace.
So Jonn, for someone who may be listening to this podcast who doesn't know anything about the International Black Summit and is listening to this, what would you offer them inside of the context of this conversation? You talked about vision, you talked about distinctions that allow you to not be stopped. What would you say to someone who is listening to this for the first time? What would you invite them into?
That's a good question, Glenn. So I'm gonna take that as an opportunity to facilitate. So the trainer in me would ask them a series of questions or tell them something for them to look at, right? Or a place in their life they need to investigate. The facilitator in me would be like, okay, what did you hear in what I've shared so far? And I will wait. So that is the question. Put it in the text. I mean, Chad, I'm not knowing if we can see it, but what did you hear? And what if you're someone new in the space, and even if you've been in the space for a while, what did you hear and what been shared so far about some of the distinctions, some of the stories, if you will? And so I would ask people to do that, and then by extension, ask them to start listening to their environment, listening to what people are saying around you. Your environment is always communicating to us. They're always communicating to me, right? But that's what I would do. So I'm being cautious to, like, I don't want I want to turn this into a share, and I want to answer your question. So I guess if I had to answer the question would be, if you're new to the space, first of all, come to a summit share or come to a prerequisite course so that you cannot be new to the space. First thing, right? If you're not able to do that, at the very least, just start noticing yourself, noticing the things you say to people, noticing the things they say back to you. See if you can do it with no judgment, right? See if you can do it by just hearing what they're saying and not adding what you say that means to it. Just see if you can do that. Look at what you're saying and not add anything to it. Just see if you can just notice what you're saying and how they're responding. And come back next week and share it with people. No.
No,
But
that's
yeah,
great.
I
And
would
they
say
can come back next week and share it to the with
and
people.
come
That is
back
an
and share it.
open invitation if they
Right.
like.
And if you listen to this on podcast, just come. It just happens every Sunday, mostly every Sunday. Come to a Sunday and share it, what you notice about yourself, about others, what you notice, right? And then see if you can determine the difference between what you noticed happened and what you're saying about what happened. See if you can tell the difference if you asked your spouse to do something for you and they said no. See if you can tell the difference in them saying no versus what you're making it mean because they said no. Like Grace did a really great example of, she made a request of somebody and they said no. She's like, what do you mean? No. What, you know who I am? I get my way. What do you mean? Have you lost your mind? What do you mean you're telling me no? See, that was all something to notice, right? Now she, have access to some other tools, so she was able to continue to work through it for herself. But that's all I'm asking. And just see what you see.
Great.
Now, this is not, just so people know, is not just happenstance. There is a method to the madness, but you got to do the work. You got to dribble the ball, right? You got to actually do the thing so that you can see the thing that will unlock something for you.
Yeah, and I might add that this is very experiential. So this is something that's personal. This is something that is individualized to your, not in this moment. So 5 minutes ago it might have been a different noticing, a different conversation, a different way of being. But the opportunity is to keep noticing, to keep engaging in all of the things that you are listening to or noticing in your life as you go through life. So thank you, Jonn.
You're welcome. And I want to expand on this holding the space. So we say that the purpose of the International Black Summit is to provide an opportunity for participants to bring into being their vision for the Black community in the world. You could kind of look at the opportunity as the space. And what we're holding is the opportunities for people to bring into being their vision for the Black community in the world. But what does that mean? Well, what you have to see about yourself might be different than what the next person has to see about themselves, right? But we're committed that this is a space, this is a clearing, this is an opportunity for you to bring into being your vision for the Black community and the world. And if you're wondering if you got one, like you might not have it articulated, but if you're wondering if you got one, just look at who you're already being. You know, for some people, that'll be a huge eye opener. And then we're going to look at what it takes to bring that into being. So the holding of the space is like holding the opportunity, creating times when we could have this opportunity, have this clearing. So that's another way of kind of looking at holding the space. Like this, for example, is an opportunity for people to bring into being their vision for the Black community in the world. This conversation we're having right now, tonight, the people who will see it on YouTube, hear it on the podcast, it's an opportunity for people to bring into being their vision for the Black community in the world. And if they want to expand that, there's other things they can participate in, or, I invite you to participate in. And so that's how I'm also looking at holding the space. So as facilitators, our job is to hold that space, the space of opportunity. Opportunity what? For participants to bring into being their vision for the Black community and the world.
Got it. Thank you, Jonn. Thank you.
Excellent.
So we haven't spoken about the declaration yet, so I'd like to get to that in a minute. But before we get to that, we'll probably just complete with that. But before we complete with the declaration, I want to ask you to pick from one of these two questions. Or am I going to pick for you? Let's see. Actually, I'm going to pick for you. I'm going to pick for you. And the reason that I'm going to pick for you is that one of the questions is about the pandemic, and I feel like it's a little bit stale. Okay. So I'm going to go with the other question. So the other question is, what are 3 wishes that you have for the world right now? 3 wishes that you have for the world.
One wish I could say in the immortal words of, what's his name, Rodney King?
Mm-hmm.
Why can't we all just get along? So wish number 1 would be that we could get along. However we are, wherever we are, with the things we like about each other and the things we don't like about each other. And I'm not talking about peace yet. I'm just talking about get along, right? I see you, you see me. I'm not asking you to like me, but I am asking you to respect me and have a conversation with me, and I'll do the same. And then let's collectively look for what we want to have happen in the world. And if we can get along, then we got a better chance of having the world that we both, or we're all committed to. Because some aspect of it, we're all committed to some level of power and experience and self-expression and love and compassion, like it's safety, upward mobility, prosperity. We're all kind of committed to the something similar in that. So number 1 would be get along. I'm looking, because if we did that, then I don't think we would have, I would need a wish of world peace if we did that. So I'm looking, Grace. Good question. The second thing would be that everybody had at least the same playground, right? The same space to operate from, to build from, to learn from, that we could start. Like it says in the Bible, a good man leaves inheritance for his children's children, right? That's like my kids' kids. So if I can be in this world where I'm leaving an inheritance to my kids' kids, and then they're leaving an inheritance to their kids' kids, and so on and so forth, everybody gets to start at a different place. We all don't have to struggle because we used to struggle. So if we could have a place in the world of a wish, in the world of a wish, if that was a way that we could start at some place and be able to build on that and not have to overcome the resistance and overcome the obstacles and overcome the systems in which we're operating in order to express what there is for us to express in ourselves. I believe if that happened, then we could see what everybody had to offer and how it could benefit everybody else.
Interesting. Thank you. Number 3.
I know, right? It's a good question.
Glad I chose it.
I guess the third one would be, and this might be part of a utopian kind of thinking. The third one would be we had a different, kind of related to the second one. We just had a different system altogether. Like I look at, I'm a Trekkie, right? All the Treks, all of them. Captain Kirk, Mr. Spock.
Next generation here. Next generation.
Yeah, I'm all of them. That group, Next Generation, Picard, Geordi, Riker, Data, like all of them. I can keep going. Cisco, the Ferengis, the whole nine, right? So there's a way that they operate on the Enterprise where, on the ship itself, where there's no money. There's no salary, right? There's no accumulation, right? And your quarters are proportionate to your function, right? Not even your contribution, just to your function. But everybody gets a place to stay every day. Everybody gets a place, everybody gets something to eat every day, right? Most people.
Is that socialism?
I don't know what it is, but I like it. Most people, right? Most people are there doing what they want to be doing, that which expresses them the most, whether it's in command, it's in engineering, it's in medical, right? It's in security. Like they are doing the thing that they love to be doing. And all the other stuff they don't have to worry about. And from what I understand, that a lot of people want to be on the Enterprise, but that's not the only place that it happens. It's like might be, for some people, the ultimate expression of myself as an engineer would be the engineer on the Enterprise, right? But that doesn't mean your contribution as an engineer is not wanted or warranted in society. There is a place for you. So I was telling Susan the other day, I don't know who it was, that I would like to know, how do we go from there? How do we go from here to there? How do we go from a capitalistic society and way of thinking where accumulation for some people is the goal, to this environment where that's not the case any longer? Like, how do we get there? Right? So that would be like the third place, and I don't know if it's particularly in that order, but if those three things was happening, that you got a place that you go, your food and everything is taken care of, who you are, you got a platform that allows you to build upon what your skills are, your God-given um, 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 God-given gifts are. And if we could just all get along, I mean, we have those three things, that would be three pretty cool wishes I love to see come true. So, Jeannie, I am rubbing my lantern now.
Ah,
Oh, that's beautiful.
And
That's
you're supposed to say your
well,
wishes, so I
you can
command.
speak it. You're speaking it into existence, John.
exactly.
We just need the alignment to catch up.
Just all.
And which brings me to the next portion, because what John just did is he declared something. He said something and put it into existence, out into the space. And one of the things that we do here at the International Black Summit is we have a declaration. And that declaration was put together at the first International Black Summit. And it was a group of 120 people that looked at it and said, well, what is it? Why are we here? What are we here to do? What's the purpose of us getting together? We didn't know each other. You know, we had a commitment to impact the Black community. And inside of that commitment, this declaration was developed. And it was developed and adhered to by everyone in the room. It was a collaboration of the second day, the Saturday of the first annual summit event. And so I'm going to presence that for you, but understand that that's been I don't want to say a mantra per se, but that's kind of been the being of our existence. So when you listen to declaration, listen for the part that you created, because there are sections of it that I say that we all participated in, even now. And so with that, I'm going to present the declaration of the International Black Summit for you. And one of the traditions that we do at the events, summit shares, annual event prerequisites, the care community events, we start and end the day with the declaration so that it gives us a context and a presence space of being. You know, John talked about holding the space, and the declaration is holding the space for the organization. So with that, let me present the declaration of the International Black Summit. The Declaration of the International Black Summit. We declare ourselves, our community, and all communities whole and complete. There is nothing to do except be. We assert that we are responsible for generating community as possibility and distinction. We listen for and grant being to the possibility and creation of unpredictable results. Our conversation of, about, and for those of African descent is one of power, self-generation, abundance, responsibility, unity, and integrity with the possibility of being. We stand for the expression of our spirituality, ending the murders of our men, women, and children, building economies responsible for funding our community, maintaining wellness of being in our bodies, providing human services, establishing nurturing relationships, altering the conversation of who we are in the media, empowering our youth. We declare that our community manifests itself in the world as a contribution in the transformation of the universe. Atlanta, Georgia, October 7th, 1991. To the north, to the south, to the east, and to the west, and wherever people of Black African descent reside, we're going to take a moment of silence. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Jonn. Thank you so much for being our guest tonight. It was a great conversation, and just appreciate everything that you do and everything that you've done is in your role, various roles, the various hats that you wear in the International Black Summit. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jonn.
And for those of you who are watching on YouTube who are listening on Spotify or any of our other podcast platforms, we thank you for being with us tonight as well, and hope that you will at some point consider being in our audience when we do our live recordings. And for those of you who are in the live recording tonight, we're about to stop this recording and we're going to have our Q&A after. So thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Before we do that, just want to let you know you can get more information at blacksummit.org, and certainly you can find the declaration there, and you can find information for our next prerequisite, and also we'll be posting information for the annual event soon, which will be in August. So thank you, good night, and God bless.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Good night.